The Leones, the Sindacos, the Forellis, Vance Cartel, and also Grove Street families are organizations thanks to which we get to know many aspects of the criminal underworld in the GTA series. We see how they develop, what their pattern of action is, how they earn money, or with whom they fight the most. In connection with the last point, these fights are often associated with breakdowns of organizations. However, as various cases show, this is obviously not the only key factor. For instance, there are also problems in business, resulting in lack of money. On the other hand, yet another reason may be getting weaker caused by a lack of appropriate action on the part of the most important members and the gang bosses themselves. And following this point, in this episode, we will look at the split up of Grove Street families, which took place before the events of GTA San Andreas. We will present to you our point of view and the missions that deal with this issue. Welcome to the Gaming Investigators channel, and let's get to the video. The first point of our episode will be to discuss what we've been able to deduce from the introduction movie. We will move on specifically to a cutscene in which Sweet talks with Big Smoke. Big Smoke tries to make Sweet realize that the gang situation is getting worse and worse compared to other criminal groups in Los Santos.
Hey, fool, we losing the streets, man.
Nah, we just standing by our principles, homie.
But our principles are making us bitches, man. Everyday ballers get stronger, and you and I get weaker. You and I get poorer, man.
Man, that shit'll blow over.
Oh,
it always
whatever,
does.
The gradual loss of territory causes Grove Street families to lose influence, creating problems such as the lack of money. On top of that, other big gangs are investing in the extremely profitable drug business. Thanks to that, they get more money, weapons, and generally grow in strength all the time. However, Sweet remains passive to all of this. He says there is allegedly nothing to worry about, as the Grove Street families have their rules and all drug-driven development of other gangs will soon be over. Perhaps Sweet meant that the police vice units were going to take part in this, stopping the Vagos and the Ballas from further development. As a consequence, this trend wouldn't last for too long. However, you can see here that Sweet doesn't even have any little plan in case this whole drug trend continues for an extended period of time. In our opinion, you should prepare yourself for such a circumstance while being the leader of a gang. And here it would be worth paying attention to the statement of Big Smoke, which concerns drugs and with which we can also agree. Big Smoke is right when he says that the current situation is damn serious and drugs could just make it better. Sweet responds saying that he is doing it all for the hood, not money, and that he doesn't want to destroy the family. To be honest, Sweet's statement is a rather poor reason. After all, getting into the drug business does not necessarily have to spoil the hood and the organization because it is the gang itself that decides where drugs will be distributed and in what quantity. In short, after taking drugs, it doesn't have to be a situation where the gang loses control over it. Even though in Cleaning the Hood mission, we can see drug-induced effects on some Balla members, it doesn't mean that this is inevitable. You have to be aware that the Balla's OGs do not care about their soldiers that much, thus looking only at the profits from the drug trade. Although we are witnessing such and not other situation, still, it would not have to appear in the case of Grove Street families in our opinion. Moving on, let's now consider what other reasons could have led to the division of Grove Street families. The death of Brian Johnson is a heavily debated cause that should be considered. Although Brian was probably not very much involved in the gang's activities due to his age, we know that his death seriously shook much of Los Santos community, especially in the ghettos. CJ's incompetence, which most likely led to the death of an innocent child, could have caused many question marks to appear among other factions belonging to the Grove Street families. He was an important gang figure after all, and now he must have lost in the eyes of other members after making such a mistake. As a result, this could have simply had a negative impact on the perception of the competence and strength of the Grove Street family's OGs. In turn, another reason that could have caused the collapse of the GSF could be the attempted assassination of Sweet, in which the famous Green Sabre played the main role. As you know, Sweet luckily avoided death, but as we remember, unfortunately, it was not without victims, because the Ballas killed Beverly Johnson, the mother of CJ, Sweet, Kendall, and Brian. We believe that this event may be linked to the breakup of the Grove Street families, as the raid on Grove itself looks as if other Los Santos gangs have decided that GSF shouldn't exist anymore. The Ballas eventually attacked the most important point for the Grove Street families, trying to kill one of the important, if not the most important member of this gang. For the other factions in the group, it was a signal that they could not feel safe. That's because this situation clearly showed that their territories and their lives are currently very much endangered. The attack on Sweet was also a signal that the Ballas wanted to completely annihilate the Grove Street families. And in order to completely eliminate an enemy gang, you have to get rid of everyone who belongs to it or make them join yours. In short, it was at that moment that the families realized that if they do not take specific steps, their days are numbered. Meanwhile, it's time to move on to the storyline, and more specifically to the moments that show us what problems the families were struggling with. The first thing that quickly catches our attention is the large dispersion of GSF gangs around Los Santos. Unlike the Ballas, whose sets are located in a pile, Temple Drive families and Seville Boulevard families are separated by a considerable distance from each other. The long distances between gangs make it difficult to forge any better relationships, especially in the case of Temple Drive families. A good example is when a set is attacked. The worst circumstances would be the case of Temple Drive, which is west of Grove Street and Seville Boulevard. No wonder then that the Temple Drive family's grounds soon became the property of the Ballas. As if that was not enough, even if Grove Street families and Seville Boulevard families decided to help in the moment of the raid, it would be difficult as hell. The main reason why we think so is that aid would have to break through the Great Wall of the Ballas, who would probably be prepared for where the aid would come from. Consequently, Temple Drive families are quite an easy pickings for the Ballas, as the family would have to wait too long for support from other factions. In addition, it is inconvenient to quickly flow information between these groups. While Ballas sets are located near each other and can quickly exchange relevant data or orders, plus they can also quickly organize themselves for action, the case of Grove Street families is completely different. Another thing is the lack of equipment, which we can see perfectly during the first missions in the game. The gang members mostly walk around with pistols or have nothing at all, while the Ballas are extremely armed. It is worth noting that Grove Street had the best weapons, mainly thanks to Ryder's involvement. On the other hand, the other sets were rather poor in this matter, so it would be much more difficult for them to defend themselves in the event of an open conflict with the Ballas or Vagos. Of course, not to mention the development and the attack on the territory of enemy groups that follows. In connection to this, we recommend you take a look at the last episode about Ryder, which is quite popular. The penultimate factor that had a significant impact on the breakdown of the Grove families was a different opinion in the context of the organization's activities and a completely different vision in general. While the Grove Street families made the key decisions about the Green gangs, it is reasonable to suppose that Temple Drive and Seville Boulevard repeatedly disagreed, leading to misunderstandings and internal conflicts. It is especially possible in the case of entering the drug mark, which, in fact, would effectively help to maintain the ghettos financially. But since Grove Street families was vehemently against this endeavor, it is no wonder that the rest of the families chose to leave or join a hostile gang. The last and probably highly debatable reason for this unpleasant situation is Sweet Johnson himself. Even though Sweet seems to be a really decent leader, unfortunately, the man doesn't do much for his gang other than just governing and giving orders. A good example is the moment from the introduction we talked about earlier. If Sweet didn't want to get into the drug business, then he should have found other ways to make money for his gang. Instead, he remained passive, deluding that all this bad situation would end by itself magically. Of course, the plot also includes missions where we can see that Sweet is trying to do something good, but due to mistakes in the strategy and the rapid development of other gangs, all these activities are a bit like Sisyphean work. At the end, we would like to show you some interesting moments about the topic of today's episode, which we can learn about from the game files. First, we'll take a call from Sweet that we received before the Ryder mission. During the conversation, Sweet is telling CJ that Temple Drive families and Seville Boulevard families have a beef with Grove Street families, and consequently have separated from the gang. As a curiosity, we want to mention that originally, the phone conversation with Sweet was supposed to be a bit more extensive. Let's listen to the passage that is unused.
Just because they wear greens don't mean they're allies. Copy?
From this excerpt, it can be concluded that the developers planned that members of Grove Street families who lived in districts other than Ganton, such as Temple, were neutral or hostile to CJ and possibly impossible to recruit. Moving on, we'll delve into the mission called Cleaning the Hood. In the beta version of the game, after this mission, we had to receive a total of 3 phone calls from Sweet from time to time in connection with the elimination of drug dealers, where CJ's brother would once again have a lot of grudges against the main character of the game.
What's up?
CJ and Sweet, I thought you were on top of that problem.
Which problem? I got problems knee deep.
Hey man, this push is all over Gatton. I thought you was gonna put in time for your hood, man.
Don't sweat me, bruh. I'm on it.
I hope so, cause a lot of homies fall into that rock.
Like I said, I'm on it. Yeah.
You seen your soldiers recently? You seen what the streets are like?
What you talking about?
Damn baseheads! The Grove Street family need OGs, not whacked out chicken heads. They won't roll when they so high.
I'll go see what I can see.
Well, open your eyes this time, fool.
What's up?
What did I tell you about keeping an eye on your hood?
Yeah, my bad. Shit been hectic, man.
Grove Street's full of strawberries. Ain't no OG out here who ain't high on yay. No motherfucker gonna bang when they fried.
I tell you what, I'ma do a hood patrol, find the pushers, and whack them.
You damn straight you will.
The last mission that mentions the split up of Grove Street families is the Beat Down on Beat Up quest. This mission somewhat confirms our opinion that Sweet was grossly guilty in the context of the breakup of the organization. In the final version of the mission, there is nothing interesting about the breakup of Grove Street families. However, in the beta version, this particular mission was intended to shed some more light on the situation.
Beat up get his claws into you, Bear.
Man, Grove Street families used to be tight, man. Then little Brian got caught up, you ran off. I don't mean to dish you, man, but you did.
I know, but I'm back now.
True, homie. That's real spit. Anyways, man, Sweetie just became a hard man to be with, you know? Then we got bad blood with Seville Boulevard families, and they split from the Grove, then Temple, hell, they went Lone Ranger too. Sweet, man, he did absolutely nothing.
As can be seen, Big Bear also blamed Sweet for not doing something to keep the other families together. It just makes us even more convinced that Sweet is guilty of the gang split up a lot more than we might think. To sum up, there were many reasons why the Grove Street family's gang collapsed. Some points influenced this situation more, others less. The developing drug market has certainly played an important role in all of this. However, what can disappoint us in all this the most is the poor attitude of the head of the Grove Street families, who clearly did not deal with the growing issue properly. Therefore, it was CJ who took matters into his own hands, and it was mainly thanks to him that the families were back on their feet. In the context of today's topic, we strongly encourage you to watch the episode about Tenpenny's plan for CJ, which was released on the channel some time ago. Meanwhile, we thank you in advance for all comments and likes or dislikes. Stay tuned and see you soon.